Amidst all the drama and chaos within the Destiny community, we have another problem. A new foe has emerged, and that is broken matchmaking. I don't know how Bungie cooked this one up, but if you go into matchmaking right now, the Iron Banner is out. You cannot play, you cannot find a match, you won't find anyone, and eventually you'll get a Mongoose error code. This happens both in PvE and in PvP, which is astounding that they're able to break both of them. I guess maybe they're both tied together. But to give you a little example of what's happening here, if I load into this Mayhem match, I'm searching for Guardians 1 out of 12, and I will just be sitting here indefinitely until I get a Mongoose error code. Bungie has addressed it briefly, saying that they're aware of the issue. I don't know what happened or how this happened, because there's actually meant to be maintenance every Tuesday at reset for an hour and a half, but this Tuesday they didn't do any maintenance at all. And so even without maintenance, we're still having issues in the game, and ones that are quite literally making Destiny 2 unplayable at this point in time. But in the midst of all this chaos, we actually got a response from Joe Blackburn, who's the game director for Destiny 2. He was responding to a bunch of drama on Twitter and all the different criticisms that Destiny 2 is currently receiving. So let's jump into that. Bungie has recently responded to a ton of the criticism, backlash, and heat from the community. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there have been various different viral posts criticizing Bungie's monetization recently, the issues with the anti-cheat, and just a lot of overall concerns and frustrations with where Destiny 2 is currently at right now. And it hit ahead today on Twitter. We actually had Joe Blackburn, who's one of the big top executives at Bungie, respond to this tweet right here, which is, we have Ryan Gilliam tweet out saying, "I so sincerely wish people felt more comfortable quitting things they don't like. Hate Destiny 2. Can't believe Blizz wants to make you to make a new Diablo 4 character every season. Quit. Just quit. Do something you enjoy, because the endless negative discourse is exhausting." And so basically their premise is that, you know, if you're frustrated with playing Destiny, then quit playing Destiny, which is not really a fair criticism. I mean, you spend a lot of time and money investing into Destiny. You're kind of expecting what Bungie has promised, and that's kind of the issue. I think that making a sort of vague, sweeping statement of, if you're not enjoying Destiny, then just quit, is really not the best. It's also not the best approach that Bungie wants either. Paul Tassi responds to this saying, "I think Destiny 2 has shown you can actually make change, hopefully constructive criticism with constructive criticism. So why not Diablo?" Which is a fair point. We have seen Bungie revert things like sunsetting and various other issues because the community expressed such strong contempt and negative feedback towards those things. And so why can't Diablo 4 do the same thing? Because obviously people are upset with Diablo 4 now. There's also issues in that game as well. It's not a perfect game by any means. No game is. And so Paul Tassi has a pretty fair response and fair criticism there. And then we see Joe Blackburn chime in here, and he has a lengthy response, and you can make of it what you will. We'll go through this. File this under the "what I should have said nothing" category, but I like both you guys, so here's a little bit of perspective on the other side. "Every single successful live service game I know is run by groups of folks that eat, sleep, and dream about their game every day, and a ton of core players have the same relationship with the game. It's the thing that they want to do with their time. They want it to be great. They want to love it and play it, not it. Giving good constructive feedback is really hard. I say a lot of shit I regret before becoming a game dev, and even a bunch of folks teaching me how to do it well in game dev. I've still said some stupid shit directly to humans that I respect, and then giving that kind of feedback takes practice. It doesn't make you a bunch of narcissists when you say it, and it certainly doesn't skyrocket top of social media, so it's pretty unreasonable for someone like me to expect it. That being said, I don't wish this style of discourse on anybody. I think it's a side effect, not the treatment. Internally, making these kinds of games is so much harder than I could have ever imagined. I think there's a desire to be more transparent from both sides, but in reality, it can take 2-hour meetings to explain why around a decision a senior dev who has already spent 5 years learning about the 12 competing pressures of game dev's process. It's not fair for me to expect anyone who just wants to play care about all of that." Interesting. That one's the one I have probably the most questions about. There's a ton of times where in the process of making these behemoths, you just fumble the ball. So there's that great why you just need to figure out and how you're going to make it better. I can remember from the outside, it seemingly people didn't know when something didn't land right, but game dev has a bunch of folks that are really good at pulling a bunch of avenues of feedback, play patterns, help us read the matrix. It's often just a mix of huge player base wanting different things, and even when you find a new path, it being way slower than anyone wants it to be to go live. So this is not some sob story about how hard it is to make these live games, or me wanting folks to feel bad about the things that are said on the internet, keeping me awake rolling a bed every night. But often I'll see a take around, it's too hard to make these things and they're unrealistic to maintain, or even the best studios stumble when making one. Why even do it at all? And it's the same reason why people play. We just love the thing and we desperately want it to exist. So I think what he is trying to approach here is more just the issue of creating a live service game, which has become the new most sought after thing in game development right now. Because right now, I mean, if you don't know the history of game development, obviously there's been a lot of turmoil. Like, you come out with a new game, there's box service games, right, where you deliver your game and then you have to come out with a new game the next year, and you kind of carry the revenue from one game to the next game. And that's the model that was for gaming for a long time. That's why we saw so many different titles in gaming. If you look back in the last 20 years of gaming, there's just so like the library of games is just massive because that was the business model. But now in the modern era, the business model has evolved to live service games where you make one game and your character exists in that universe and you create stories around it and you interact with PvE and PvP and lore and everything, everything that Destiny has, and you try to have one all-encompassing game. And that's kind of the new goal. And so what he's kind of tackling that is both some of those issues with that and how they have issues with it at Bungie. And obviously his statements are pretty vague, and he doesn't want to get himself roasted too hard, because we literally just had that other Bungie dev that said Diablo 4 power scaling is lazy, and he just got flamed into the stratosphere and literally had to like delete his entire Twitter account because of it. So he doesn't want to throw himself in the fire too deep, right? But without being too specific, he does give some perspective here, that none of these Bungie devs want the game to suck. None of those Bungie devs want these games to have issues. He's currently working on and thinking about a lot of this stuff. And he's even saying something about he keeps him up at night, which I think is good to hear, a little bit of humanity from Bungie. That we can often feel like a good amount of like corporate mumbo jumbo from them and feel like they're holier than thou type of vibe. Like we could never possibly understand the complexities of the galaxy brains at Bungie, but I think that the average gamer can understand a lot of it. And that's one thing that I take question with this one right here. In reality, it can take 2-hour meetings to explain the why around a decision. A senior dev who already has spent 5 years learning about the 12 competing pressures of a game dev's process, and it's not fair for me to expect anyone who wants to play to care about all of that. 2 hours to explain the why? All right, so whatever the hell it is that's taking you 2 hours to explain the why, we got to somehow simplify it, because the question that's being asked is, why are there all these monetization efforts and less content? A very simple question. And if we're going to give us the runaround for 2 hours, explain, well, actually this, that, and this, that, and this, that, it's like still that like you can explain it in the most convoluted, complex way possible, but people are still going to be very frustrated. And I know that it's been a slow process getting to this point. It started with the Taken King and the monetization of Eververse, and it's now slowly evolved to where it is now. And it's not so bad. It's not pay to win. It's not EA level yet, but it's right on the edge there. It's borderline there. A lot of people have been questioning the monetization of Destiny 2 and how predatory it seems, and how it's getting to a point where so many things are being monetized to such an extreme level, and the amount of money that things cost is getting a bit steep. So I think that it would be worth for them to do the 2-hour meetings of why on the monetization in Destiny 2. I think it would be worth the 2-hour meeting if that's what it takes, or the 5-hour meeting, whatever it takes them to condense an article about this and talk about that stuff, and also talk about the empty promises about the armor that's missing, and no issues of Gambit being talked about, no updates to Gambit rather. Some interesting feedback from Bungie in this response. I think that this response is a bit vague, but they're working on it, and hopefully things do improve, because you can have that wonderful cash cow Destiny 2 and it can make you $3.6 billion or whatever it's made them, right? But you can also burn that to the ground with poor management. We've seen various different games go down that were wildly successful at one point in time. We've seen things, we've seen bridges get burned and the ships sink. So hopefully that's not the beginning of Destiny 2's downfall, but we will see. Only time will tell. Let me know your thoughts about it down in the comments. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed. Click this video here if you want to watch another one from the channel. Smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.